So there was a Q&A with Terry, the lead developer at IRONMACE, just a few days before Playtest 4. That's right guys, it's only a few days before the servers of Dark and Darker go live again. The playtest is scheduled to go for a week between 6th and 13th February. In this video, I got the highlights of the new features that we can enjoy in the next playtest and some insight about the future of the game. I want to ask you quickly to hit the like button and subscribe. We're just 20 shy from 1000 subscribers. I'll be making a lot of Dark and Darker content, so it's gonna be worth it. Let's not waste any more time and let's go into the highlights. One of the most requested things by the community was a solo queue. I totally get why people are asking for it, because when I was learning the game in the last playtest, I often got stomped by geared 3-man teams. It was a bit frustrating at times, but to be honest, when I was more comfortable with the game mechanics later, I felt that going solo was a challenge, yes, but it was also quite satisfying when you actually get the 3v1. The devs have interesting solution with a solo only dungeon, which is completely different from the one we know from the last playtest. Here's what Terry had to say exactly.
How do you support solo adventures, right?
Okay.
And so we're going to do a big experimental thing this time. We designed the game from the, is that we're not big fans of just having a solo queue, right? In our mind, and what we want to accomplish for the game, 5-10 years down the line, right? The overall vision is that Dark and Darker is not just about just one dungeon in itself. It's that there's this whole world, right? And so we want it to feel like it's like an actual world setting, right? And so this is it's going to be like a teaser. It's like, oh, everyone is used to this dungeon that they're familiar with right now. It's like, oh wait, but we want to give you a hint of, okay, there's more to just this one location, right? And can we design an experience around just, so the one thing we didn't want to do was like, oh, make a solo queue just for our current dungeon, because that's not what the current, crypt dungeon was designed around, right? It's around that kind of whole, hey, I'm here with my fantasy party and we're going dungeon diving, right? And it's like, okay, adventurers, they're not always going to be hanging around with their adventuring crew. Sometimes they want to go do things on their own, right? And it's like, okay, how can we accommodate that and still keep within the lore and expand upon the setting that we want to do? And so that's kind of what that hint with the cave troll is going to be. So again, it's very experimental. We're looking at, because the community, at least a large part of the community, has been giving us that message. It's like, hey, when my friends aren't online, I still want to be able to do something that builds upon my character. And it's like, so, they made it loud and clear that there's that kind of need. And we want to, SDF, the guy in charge in our studio, charge of this project, when we kicked off the new year at our company, he said straight up, he says, the goal of our company and our team is to fulfill the dreams of the gamers that want to play our games. So that's our main motivation. And so if they had that kind of nostalgia and dream to, want to be adventuring, but not always with a group, hey, we got to take that seriously and let's see if we could do it in a way that we could make it our own that fits this whole Dark and Darker experience.
Next big thing largely requested by the fans is indeed the VOIP. For those of you who were looking forward to it, I got great news. It will be in the next playtest. Here's footage from the Q&A.
So what is the progress looking like on that?
It'll be in the game this test.
It's going to be in the game this test.
Yes.
Let's go.
Yes. So again, it's it was a big technical.
Dude, chat's just doing this right now.
Yeah. So actually, I wanted to get input from, like, because you guys are big streamers, and I know that, so we have, it's going to be on by default. So we have the basic keyboard bindings for that. So by default, I think it's like the comma or the period key, but you guys will be able to customize it. Press it, it'll just mute it. And then there's another one where you press it, it switches between just team only or the proximity.
Okay. Nice.
So that's what we've been working on the most. We're working on it. This is our first time working on it. So but it'll be in this time. That was the big announcement that I wanted to do this.
They discussed early access and the plans for the B1 dungeon. Terry mentioned that early access still targeted for April, but realistically it could be beginning of May. Implementing the B1 map is one of their hardest challenges in his opinion. Here's his thoughts on this.
So hopefully if the new quality of life features meet the expectations of the players this time, and then we can start focusing basically on building up enough content to get to early access. So I think if things go well in that aspect, then yeah, I feel pretty good about going early access. I know in the past we've said April, but I'll be very realistic. it is more like end of April or maybe May. That's probably going to be more realistic.
That's fair.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing for us, one of the biggest challenges is going to be B1. In my mind, is like that is a must-have for early access is to have B1, and we're still on the concept phase for that. And
speaking of B1, there's been like community rumors back and forth, and I think we've talked about this in the past, but and I know that this is something that Sacriel has kind of been rallying for, would be the idea of starting in like an outdoors kind of forested area and then working your way into the dungeon from like the outside. So I guess my question is, for B1, will we be able to see the sky?
There's actually been that discussion internally, and so again, I don't want to commit because we haven't actually done any real development work yet. But seeing the sky was actually talked about.
Brand new feature they're introducing is the in-game party finder and a karma system. Here's details from Terry himself.
But then we do want to make it so at least not the non-gameplay experience is as smooth as possible for them. And so the other thing with VOIP that we're adding this time is an in-game party finder. So you don't need to just go and just start spamming invites to everyone. Is that we'll actually have like an in-game chat room, and you could inspect other people, and it's separated by regions, and so
Nice, that's cool.
And I guess supplement that is that there's going to be a karma system.
Oh.
So if you team kill too many people, like your name will turn red. So it'll be very hard for you to. I mean, you probably need to do a lot of convincing to get people to party up with you. So these are experimental stuff that we're working on. Just because, even though it doesn't add to the actual gameplay experience, because we want to widen the net for new players coming in, is to make it as smooth as possible. These are the things that you could expect with the playtest.
The wizard in the last playtest was a little bit OP. Here Terry explains what happened, also hints at a new class, the sorcerer.
Straight out say what we're doing with the wizard to kind of balance it with the starting stats. So
yeah,
again, this is holdover from where we designed the classes before we actually had a magic system inside the game itself. And so when we made the wizard, right, is that in our mind, like the wizard was like the guy that studied a lot of magic. So he had a lot of knowledge, but then so he's going to be more versatile, right, with magic. And then in our mind, like the guy that's the super powerful magic user is like the sorcerer. The sorcerer is like the guy that had like the innate magic abilities, but he doesn't. He didn't study. You know, he read like one book, one magic book, and he's like super good at those spells, and they're super powerful. So he's not as versatile with his spells, but he would be more powerful. But what happened is it kind of our wizard right now is more like what we imagine like the sorcerer would be because we actually implemented magic. We didn't have a lot of spells, right? And then the other thing was we didn't have the knowledge attribute wasn't fully implemented until the last playtest, right?
Right.
So when we were playing with our wizard and he had all these stats and knowledge, it was like, dude, he's like nerfed compared to all the other characters because they don't have a high knowledge stat, right? So we're like, oh, okay, well, that's no fun. He feels weaker than all the other characters. Let's kind of switch it around so he's viable inside the current framework, right? And now we have knowledge working properly, and so it's like, okay, so we haven't, at least up until now, things could change. Things could change in the next, 5 days or so. Okay, let's go back to what our original intention, that vision of what the wizard was, right? It's like, oh, he's like a more, multi-purpose kind of magic user. And so we're actually looking at, instead of touching too much of the power tables, is that we're going to actually touch balance the spells directly itself, and then actually change around the stats of the starting stats of the wizard. And so the other thing we should realize when we're going and looking at the stats is that so all the characters have base stats. If you sum up all the stats, it's 75, except the cleric. So
he's missing a point, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And finally, as we expected, the part won't make it into this playtest.
Obviously, just because we haven't been focused on content, there's not going to be a bard this time.
No bard for this one. Maybe next time. Okay.
Hopefully next time. Hopefully next time. I think. Yeah. I inadvertently, now I'm thinking about it, I think I kind of gave away another class, right? The sorcerer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty typical. It's gonna obviously any of those traditional fantasy roles, we're gonna start working on it.
Those were the most important things discussed in this Q&A. For those who made it so far, I got a few more mentions that might be interesting to know. They talked a little bit about tweaking the speed reduction while wielding a two-handed weapon. Nothing is confirmed really, but it's noted that in certain situations balancing is required. When asked about the state of the trading system, Terry said that more or less that is what they envisioned, but it's a little bit chaotic, so they will try to make it smoother. Terry also mentioned that they reduced the prices of the ruby silver items in half, so more people can have access to them. And finally, there won't be any quests in this playtest, but they're in the works. So in conclusion, I want to say that I'm super hyped for the playtest and for the game in general. I plan to make a lot of guides and content for you guys, so please like and subscribe and hit the bell icon. I will see you in the dungeon. Hex out.